Good evening, and thank you to everyone who is joining us tonight. I am very excited to be here moderating this discussion with two extraordinary authors and women whose books speak to mine and many other women's concerns about self-empowerment for ourselves, our women friends, our daughters, our siblings, and for someone who's always interested in viewing things such as this from a cultural lens. Marita Golden and Ananta Ripa Ajmera offer us guidance on empowerment from two different but ultimately common perspectives. And before we delve into our conversation, I want to say a special thank you to Central Arkansas Library System for presenting just an amazing book festival that began yesterday, September 25th, and goes through October 1st. They are celebrating their 20th year of bringing amazing books and authors to Arkansas each year. Kudos to CALS. So let's start by, rather than me deciding what is important to say about each of you, I'd love Marita and Ananta to introduce yourselves for about 2 minutes in the way that you see yourselves and how you want others to see you. And Ananta, if you will start, please.
Okay, sure. So my name is Ananta Ripa Ajmera. I am the co-founder and director of an organization called The Ancient Way, which is supporting you to be able to bring ancient wisdom into your modern life so that you can become the one you've been dreaming of and to leave this world better than you found it. I studied for 12 years with different lineage-based master spiritual teachers in the Ayurveda, yoga, and Vedanta spiritual philosophy traditions. And all of this rich ancient wisdom is what really informs all of my books and my work in terms of my organization, and also the new publishing and PR company I'm in the process of establishing called Soul Wisdom Press and PR. I am just a lover of words and books. Ever since I can remember, I have been reading multiple books and writing in multiple journals at a single time. And it's just always such a pleasure to be able to come together with fellow authors and lovers of books. So I'm just really grateful to be here with all of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Marita Golden, tell us a little about yourself.
I'm a 73-year-old woman. I'm a writer, the author of 22 works of fiction, nonfiction, memoirs, editing, anthologies. I'm the co-founder and president emerita of the Zora Neale Hurston Richard Wright Foundation, which for 30 years has supported the international community of Black writers. And I have to put a plug in here that for those of you who are lovers of Black literature, on Thursday, October 26th, we will be having our Legacy Award, which is the Oscars of Black writing. So go to the hurstonwright.org website for information. I am a literary consultant, and I'm also a teacher. I love teaching. I have a passion for working with individuals to unearth and bring and birth their stories into the world. For a number of years, I have been a mental health advocate and activist, having written a novel, The Wide Circumference of Love, about a Black family living with Alzheimer's disease, then a major piece of journalism, then editing an anthology where those caring for people with Alzheimer's wrote about the experience. And my most two recent books, The Strong Black Woman and The New Black Woman, deal with self-care, healing, and wellness.
Right, absolutely. Now, I'm going to just stick with you, Marita, and ask you, I know that I've read many of your books, and I know that you're methodical about how you decide what themes you're going to tackle in your books. Was there any one thing that helped you take the leap and write The New Black Woman?
Well, the story of the new Black woman is embedded in the strong Black woman. In 2021, the strong Black woman, how a myth endangers the physical and mental health of Black women, came out. And it's a book I wrote during the pandemic. The lockdown was very creative period for me, like for a lot of my writing friends. And after suffering a kind of a health crisis that actually wasn't a health crisis, I discovered some things about my health. And that led me to begin to think about Black women's health and the strong Black woman complex, the idea that we always have to be so super strong. And so I wrote the book, which is a combination of journalism, essays, and interviews with Black women about how they have hurt and how they heal, particularly talking about seeking mental health professional care. So when people read that book, I was very pleased with the enthusiastic reception, but they said, Marita, you haven't talked enough about your mental health practices. How do you stay healthy? How do you stay sane? How do you stay balanced? And so the response to that request was The New Black Woman, which is a nice little small book. You can put it in your pocketbook, you can put it on your pillow, and it's half inspiration, where I talk about my contemplative practices, setting boundaries, and caring for my body. And the second half is a whole many pages of resources for people who are ready to start and sustain a practice of mental health care.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Ananta, what about you? Did you have an aha moment? Or was there something in your personal journey that kind of propelled you to write this book about the way of the goddess?
Yeah, actually about, gosh, maybe 12 years ago or 15 years ago, I visited the Gandhi ashram in India. My family is from India, and I remember going on a trip to learn about girls' education initiatives in India and going to an organization at the Gandhi ashram and learning about the children there, and then seeing one child in particular named Lakshmi, who had gone through a lot of abuse in her childhood and was sent to the Gandhi Ashram organization to get an education, to better herself and to better her life. And whereas all the other children were really boisterous and active and noisy, she was a lot more withdrawn. And I could tell that she had gone through a lot. And it just struck me that her name was Lakshmi, because in India, the goddess Lakshmi is the most widely worshipped goddess of wealth. And I wondered, why can we not connect the goddess Lakshmi with the goddess within this young girl and within all girls and women? And that question, that moment, that experience really led me on a quest to dig deeper into unearthing my own roots and this ancient wisdom of the goddess over many years after that. And it really has set off my journey of personal empowerment and really becoming the hero of my own spiritual journey through the 9-step process, if you will, that I take readers through in the book. And it is basically a hero's journey from a divine feminine perspective. But it was really that moment of meeting that girl and having this inspiration to look deeper at a tradition I've always grown up with, but never really understood and kind of took for granted until I started to question it. And as I questioned it, wow, so much came forth, got healed. And as I healed on my own journey of overcoming all different kinds of abuse and trauma, I just felt so grateful for that journey and for this divine connection with the goddess within, that I was actually guided by several mentors then to write the book, to be able to codify this intuitive process that I was just doing for myself for many years, so that other people can also benefit from rituals that you can do and simple practices that you can do to cultivate what are these 9 superpowers within each of your 9 chakras. So starting with the power of stability, and then cultivating your creativity from a foundation of being grounded. Then we ignite the fire of transformation, open the heart to love, liberate the power of the voice, trust our intuition, activate the power of truth, really rejuvenate our spirit, have a new beginning. And then finally, it's supporting us to really lead with integrity.
Wonderful, wonderful. That is fascinating. Your story of how you started really is fascinating. One of the things I noticed when I was reading both of your books is that although you do come from different perspectives, there is a strand of commonality in your stories and your guidance to women. And I wanted to go down and list a few and get you to comment on them. The power of spirituality in our journey to empower ourselves. I found that in both of your books, and it seems like that is especially important in women universally. So why, Marita, why is spirituality so important in our grounding, in our finding ourselves, in our discovering the better us?
Well, I think that there's this, what is the Madonna song? We live in a material world and I'm a material girl. But in actuality, we are all spiritual people. Mm-hmm. And I think that many, many people in the world know that. And their commitment to various religious traditions is an expression of their belief in something higher, something deeper, something more meaningful than just working a job, trying to be successful. And many of us of my generation and the early, other generations have combined, for example, a commitment to a particular faith tradition with a deep meaning of spirituality. Spirituality being, in my definition, a sense of connection with the divine. And I don't have to show you a picture of the divine. I don't have to explain the divine, because the divine is in you and you know it when you are in the presence of the divine. And so my journey over the last probably 40 years, in which I have made practicing silence a big part of my life, has connected me with what I call in the book, my inner Marita. And that is my intuition. That is my guardian angel. That is my spirit. And I connect with her every morning. And my deepest, most satisfying relationship, even though I'm married to one of the best men in America, is with myself, my inner Marita. And that's God to me. That is God to me. And I think that one of the things was interesting when I was writing The Strong Black Woman, I profiled many sheroes in the Black community, people like Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Faneuil Hamer, and they were all deeply spiritual women. Rosa Parks meditated and practiced yoga. And when you look at, Harriet Tubman lived to be 92, Rosa Parks lived a long time. And those practices, that spiritual resilience, I think, was crucial in their journey.
Right. What about you, Ananta? Spirituality is all through your book, threaded through your book. So tell me what that means to the journey that women take in trying to empower themselves.
Yeah, well, I think Marita made so many beautiful points in what she shared. And I feel that spirituality is so essential for us as women in particular, because of all of the objectification I feel we face in society, whether by others or the internalized sense that we are only our body, right? And we're only the way we look, and we are the only based on valuable based on what size we wear, and all of these commercial marketing messages that infiltrate us, and Instagram photos and all these things that teach us to equate our sense of worth with something outside, I think really are what cause so many problems in mental health in women. And the most direct connection back to our true nature and to the deepest source of empowerment is always a spiritual one. It's what goes beyond the body. It's when we remember that we are not just this body, we are not just this changing mind either, that can feel so many things within the span of even an hour, that we're able to really anchor ourselves in something that's lasting, something that's eternal, something that has withstood the test of time. In the Vedanta spiritual philosophy, it is said that something is only true if it's true in all passages of time. It would have been true in the past, it's true in the present, and it will continue to be true in the future. And if you think about life, there's not much you can say would be the same in all passages of time. The only thing really that is considered to be the same in all passages is the eternal nature of the soul. So the more we connect with the eternal part of us that has already lived, that is living, and that will continue to live in some other capacity, then only are we really going to find our deepest source of grounding and our greatest foundation that will allow us to be strong, even when the world crumbles around us, and even when there are great calamities in our personal lives in the world, like the pandemic, and just within and around us in relationships. So I feel like the spirituality part is just so essential to even knowing who we are and really being all that we can be in the world.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, Marita, you mentioned silence earlier, and that connected with me a lot because I grew up very shy, but once I got beyond being shy, I still held on to that silence. I just think there's a lot of power in using silence. Maya Angelou is one of my sheroes, and we all know that she went through 5 years of silence as a child because of trauma. And she has said many times that those 5 years prepared her for who she became. So that is how powerful silence is. And I would just like each one of you to tell me what silence means to you.
Well, it means rebirth and self-discovery. And ironically, I started practicing silence because, I've been practicing yoga for many years, but I was in a relationship with a man who was living with me, and there were issues in the relationship around intimacy and emotional openness. And periodically, he would go into silence. Now, when he went into silence, he didn't come out better. He didn't come out more generous, but he went into silence. Okay. For him, silence was in a way to escape and not deal with the issues in our relationship. But I said, that's interesting. So I started practicing that, and it had a very different impact on me. It grounded me. Some of the biggest problems I've had in my life, I've solved in the silence. For many years, I used to go to Pendle Hill, which is a Quaker retreat outside of Philadelphia. And you're in the suburbs, but you feel like you're in the woods. And I would practice weekends of silence. And I came to really need those periods because I found them deeply replenishing. The noise, the demands, the responsibilities were gone. I could say no to everything else. I could say yes to myself. And so it's a way in which I begin my day in meditation. And during the afternoon, I meditate again. And for example, right now, I've had a very busy week or two, and I know that I'm due for a day of silence.
Mhm. Wow. Wonderful. Ananta?
I just love that you asked her this question because that was literally the thought in my mind that I wanted to respond to her saying that because I resonate so much with everything you just said. I literally need that day of silence every week to recharge myself because there is something just so powerful about that intentional act of going within to unearth the wisdom that lives within. And in the fifth step of the Shiro's journey, we can call it now, of my book, it's actually about the birth that happens through silence, when our words are actually born of silence. They are coming from a way deeper place. And it's that silence that allows us to finally allow and observe without getting attached to the emotions that we may have buried somewhere deep within, to actually be able to heal them, because we can't heal what we can't feel. And just to feel by itself will just keep us attached to the experience that we're having. So there's something about the objectivity that you can develop in silence to simply observe what is happening without becoming involved in it, where we're really becoming the witness of our emotions rather than identified with whatever is triggering those emotions. So it is, yeah, it's such a powerful practice of really rebirthing oneself. And I feel that even the act of writing, of speaking, is so creative because words have so much power that we do need that time to be in the womb of silence to really ensure that those words are carrying the intentions we wish to bring forward into our lives. Because I believe that we create our reality and we ultimately create our life and manifest our destiny through the words that we think, that we speak, that we continuously tell ourselves. And the power to author our own life's destiny and our own life script lies within each word that we think and each thought that we script together. And only in that space of silence can we really do the deep inner work of rewriting those subconscious thoughts and words that we communicate to others to then be able to ultimately change our life. So I am in complete resonance with everything that Marita shared. And I'm so glad that you asked us this question.
The subtitle of The New Black Woman is Loves Herself, Has Boundaries, Heals Every Day. And so I am very much aware that as much as I'm committed to the practice of silence and meditation, I have to heal every day. I haven't reached a point where I'm an angel or, or my divinity is completely aware. I'm aware of it. And so I'm healing every single day, but I'm getting stronger every day, even as I'm dealing with, obsessive thoughts, worries. And there's a deep intelligence that is grounded in silence as well. We think that, the most important answers are in books. Well, some of them are, but I still think the deepest answers are within our hearts. And when we say, I can't do something, well, we can do it. We're just not ready to do it. And sometimes if we went into silence, we would get the courage to do it. One of the things I talk about in the book is that you can go to silence for 5 minutes. You don't have to go to Lululemon and buy yoga pants and sit on top of a mountain. You can practice 5 minutes is amazing. I normally meditate for 20 minutes in the afternoon, but because I was running around all day, I only did 10 minutes this afternoon. But boy, that was what I needed. That was what I needed. And I think that it's so important for women because we have all these responsibilities. Many women work 9 to 5, and then they have a second shift at home. And I'll tell you a funny story. I was in Target today, and I was in line, And I had a couple of things on the conveyor belt. So as the people were checking out in front of me, I pushed my items forward. So the checkout lady, she said, okay, hold it. Don't worry, I'm going to get to you. You guys come in here and you're in such a rush. You're so fast. You've gone to work and you're going to go to work. Calm down. Now, she didn't say it in a negative way. It was very friendly. So when I pulled out my card and I was going to pay, I said, oh my goodness. So thank you for reminding me to slow down. And I said, so that means you have a really good relaxation practice. She said, no, I don't. So that she was urging everyone else to slow down.
Right.
But she did not have that practice in her life. So I said, do I have a book for you?
Yes, yes. Now, you mentioned just now, Marita, meditation, which you both talk about in your books. And what is the difference? And this is for my own personal intelligence as well. What is the difference between meditation and silence? Just going inside yourself. Is there a difference?
Well, usually when I meditate, often when I meditate, I have a mantra that is connecting me to spirit. When I go into the silence, I don't. When I go into silence, I'm like an explorer. What's going to happen? What am I going to discover? But when I meditate, I often will meditate on a specific affirmation. And I find that very helpful. And then sometimes I meditate just on my breathing. So I think that the beautiful thing, and Ananta, I know you agree with this, there's so many different ways to be silent. There's so many different ways to meditate. And there's so many traditions that we can
I'm listening.
put together like a quilt.
Right, right. Ananta, would you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, okay, sorry. Somehow Alexa keeps getting triggered spontaneously, unpredictably. So I couldn't hear for a moment because she was talking and I was trying to disable it. So I apologize for that. But
Technology.
I love you.
Tell her to meditate.
I know.
Tell her to go into the silence.
She must have got activated by your voice. You must have said something that, she's like, I'm listening. And it's like, okay, good, keep listening, but stop talking. So yeah, actually, I love to do mantra-based meditation as well. I think anything could be a meditation, though. It's just the kind of attentiveness that we put onto what we're doing, it's that single pointedness. So when we can really bring all of our attention to a single experience or a single project, then we're able to really make anything into a meditation just by our presence and our being with it. And I think with silence, what Marita was saying reminded me of how in my book I talk about this kind of process or equation, if you will, of developing the courage of conviction in your expression and how it begins in silence. And in that silence, you are able to start a process of reflection. And that process of reflection then starts to build your conviction. And that conviction then builds up your courage. And when you have the experience of courage, it allows you to give birth to expression. So it's like a whole beautiful process that unfolds. And I think sometimes in that reflection process, like even as I wrote this book, especially, there are a lot of points of just the words leading to a place beyond words and needing to just experience the emotional kind of release of a certain experience, to be able to just see it as a witness and not be so identified with it, and also to just simply be able to sit with it. I found that in writing this second book of mine, I had to make space for a lot of days of silence where it would even take a whole day for anything to come. And I would just make that space that, okay, whatever needs to be revealed, like let it come, and maybe it won't right away because it needs more time. It needs more depth of just being with the emotion, like I write about writing a letter to someone you love who disappointed you. And I needed to go through that, like I needed to actually, first of all, be brave enough to write that letter. And as I wrote that letter, it wasn't just a intellectual exercise, right? It was like all the things inside that I had wished to express to this person who really deeply disappointed me. And I needed to just let out all the tears and just really feel that disappointment, and at the same time release it and let it go. And I think, in writing the book and doing these practices, it just deepened my own experience of them and allowed for that space of transformation to happen, for the book to then be informed by the power of experience rather than just the theory of how to heal.
There's a saying that, a Zen saying, that there's a reason that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen more than we can talk, and I think that's that's really, really true. And I recently read somewhere that trending on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter is young people realizing that they can actually go for a walk and not have their earbuds on.
Wow.
That they can go for a walk in silence and just not be listening to something. So this ancient millennial age process that we've been going through is something completely new to this generation. But of course, they were raised on not just television, but movies and social media and video games, and music is a huge part of their lives. But I found that both humorous, but also optimistic.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another theme that ran through both of your books, and as I was reading, I was saying, I wonder, is this more specific to women? Because we do have unique concerns, but setting boundaries, you both address the need to set boundaries for ourselves. And Marita, you wrote that setting boundaries make room for us. Can you elaborate on that? And Ananta, I'll ask you the same.
Well, when I was writing The Strong Black Woman, a lot of that book was about the ways in which in the African-American community, Black women have tended to be very, very strong in the conventional sense, physically strong, emotionally strong, mentally strong, because of the pressures of systemic racism and the ways in which we've often had to play husband, wife in terms of our families. And I like to say that this generation of African-American women, cross-generational, are women that our grandmothers could never have been, our mothers were afraid to be, because we're inheritors of everything from the civil rights movement, the women's movement, mindfulness movement, the mental health movement, and we are beginning to understand that when we don't set boundaries, we pay a terrific price in terms of our health, both mentally and physically. And so it was really gratifying to see the response to that, because it's a conversation that's going on. And I have a pretty good no gene. I've always been able to say, I don't want to do that. No, do it yourself. But there was one area of my life where I didn't set boundaries, and that was in terms of my relationships with men that were often deeply unfulfilling. So I had no concept of setting boundaries against relationships that sapped my energy and happiness. And going into therapy helped me understand why.
Mhm.
And so I think that more and more women these days are setting boundaries and saying yes to themselves. And it's quite liberating. Many women are still struggling with
Mhm.
guilt. And I say, you don't have to say no to everything. You don't have to read my book or Ananta's book and start saying no to everything. You can say no to one small thing and grow from there. And that many times we think that if we say no to those we love, the relationship will be irreparably harmed. Whereas those we love, because they love us, they will in time accept that we need to set boundaries. And if they can't, maybe they don't love us.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Ananta?
Yeah, this one is huge. I think this point actually comes into every step of the practice of the book's journey, because it's just so key to really even allowing ourselves to be on a spiritual journey. We're actually choosing to be conscious and to be able to make a choice that is not reactionary, that is not knee-jerk, that is not kind of the norm. We have to be able to say no to what is not supporting us on our journey of growth. In the ancient spiritual traditions, we have this concept called satsanga, which means keeping the company of sat, which means truth. So in order to progress on our journey, we have to be really careful with the company we keep, not just with people, but even with books, with the kind of social media we're looking at, the kinds of shows that we're watching, all of the inputs of all of our five senses, what we're watching, what we're smelling, what we're eating, what we're hearing, what we're exposing ourselves to is going to really influence our thoughts. And then our thoughts influence our speech and our actions. And that's how we create karma, right? So if we're looking to really be the author of our own life's script and to really connect with that divine part of ourselves, which is our true nature, then we have to start reorienting our life to ensure that we have only that which is going to support us on that journey as much as possible. Of course, there are certain things we can't control, such as children who may not be interested in this path, but we are still needing to be there for them, or even parents, perhaps. But when we can, as much as we can, really surround ourselves with people, with books, with foods, with all of the things for the five senses that are supporting us to remember our true self, to embody our true self, then only are we really going to feel supported to take each step that we need to take in order to become that best version of ourselves. It's not easy to take this journey. And the reason why we need all this support is to ensure that we have what we need to really make these changes. And as we do that, then when we're meeting people, same people who we may have spent time with earlier, but reduced our time with in order to spend more time on nourishing inputs for our senses, when we go back to them, we're going to be able to approach tough situations and challenges in our relationships from a much more clear, calm, and compassionate space. When we give ourselves that space and we care for ourselves and we really nurture our own inner child, then only are we really going to be able to truly help others and truly serve others from a place of integrity and from a place of really feeling whole within ourselves. And so even to love others, even to be of service to others, even to be the best parent, teacher, or whatever role we have to have that ability to choose those inputs that are going to really support us on our quest for connecting with our true self. So I feel it's very essential. And given that women are given a disproportionate share of a lot of responsibilities, especially in the home and family, I feel it becomes all the more important for us to develop that discernment, which always precedes the boundaries. First, we have to see, what are we connecting with? Is it leading us towards our eternal soul, or is it leading us towards, something that's transient, something that's just coming and going? And when we make those discernments, then we can start to choose those choices that are actually going to serve us on our journey. And that will then, add up in so many ways. And I feel like it will just really set a great example also for all those who look up to us or depend upon us in some way in our lives. So it feels very essential for all those reasons.
I found that often women who have issues around setting boundaries don't believe that they have a right to do it.
Yeah.
They don't believe that they deserve rest, and they don't believe that they deserve joy.
Yeah.
And the society that we're all a part of certainly doesn't emphasize joy for any of us. And so discovering that we need to, that we deserve joy, that we deserve rest, that we deserve the right to say no, sometimes it's tied up with unhealed trauma, things that we haven't let go of. And so we have to find those sources that will lead us on the journey to loving ourselves. And you say, what does that mean, love yourself? Well, it means that, in my case, that I don't let anybody mess with my joy. That's the number one thing. I either forgive them, add them to my blessing list, so that if you're presenting yourself as a big problem, you go straight on my prayer list. I'm going to bless you to death. I'm going to bless you. Okay. And that way I can release the hostility. And joy is really important to me. As a writer, I talk to writers a lot about celebrating themselves. Many writers will feel, oh, I'm writing this book and I can't breathe. I can't do anything until I finished it, even if it's going to take 5 years. Well, when I'm writing a book, I will celebrate myself after the first draft. Go to a fancy restaurant or buy a new pair of earrings or go to the circus. And so that whole idea of joy and celebration actually is anathema in this culture. I know, I'm speaking as an American. We're all about work, being on the grind, achieving, but joy and self-love, that's a whole new conversation. But I think the fact that we're having this is really important, and women are so eager for this conversation. And when we have these kinds of conversations, they're hearing things that they've never heard before and that their heart longs to hear.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, I love that so much. I feel like it's so resonant with also what I am sharing in my book, because on the 10th day of every 9-day cycle of cultivating these different spiritual superpowers within each of your 9 chakras, we take a 10th day, and that 10th day is about celebration. And it's about celebration of the eternal victory of light over darkness. Because we need a day after fighting all these battles within ourselves and in our lives to keep joy alive, to keep, truth as the main guiding force of our life. We need a day to integrate, a day to celebrate, a day to look at all the progress that we've made and give ourselves a much needed pat on the back, and also recognize that anything that we've been able to achieve is only possible because of the divine working through us and within us. And so just really harvesting that sense of gratitude and having that Sabbath, it's so critical to our lives and even our spiritual journeys, because I feel like that trauma lens, right? Of I can never do enough, I can never be enough, can also creep into the spiritual journey. And we can get really perfectionistic even about our spiritual practices and how much did we, be in silence, and how much did we meditate, and did we do it perfect, and did we check everything off the list, because we're just so conditioned that way. But if we have on the program, okay, today is the day to celebrate, it changes everything. And I love that 10th day, because every day I do this journey. And on the 10th day, it's just like, okay, now let's look back and let's be grateful. Let's be happy for the progress that we made, because only when we can celebrate the small milestones that no one else may even ever see are we going to feel juiced and enthused and full of all that it takes, which is a lot, to keep going on the journey to reach the next kind of frontier, right, of our own soul's evolution. So I feel it's really important. And now even celebrating things like, oh, I said no to this so that I could say yes to that. Things you would never think to celebrate. I feel like we have to, because that gives us the fire also to keep going with it and to believe in ourselves, especially when it gets hard, and especially when we're not getting mirrored by other people in our lives. Initially, when we set the boundaries, it can be lonely. I don't want to sugarcoat that, because you're used to certain people being there because they're playing out probably certain toxic patterns. But then when you go cold turkey and it's like, oh, there's no one left anymore, it's like, okay, but that's part of the process. That's part of the cleansing process where, we just go through that tunnel by ourselves, because we're born alone, we're going to die alone. And only when we're really at peace with ourselves alone can we really enter into a healthier new start, to new relationships, to new people, to new opportunities, to all the newness that the limits to the old toxicity can then open the way for. So it does take courage in that sense also to do it, to set the limits, and to even go on this journey in the first place, which is, again, all the more reason why we need to celebrate ourselves and really find that clarity on why we're doing what we're doing, especially when it's hard, so that we feel that we finally know ourselves and have that great anchor of self-knowledge with which to then bring in the new that's going to be healthier and not a repetition of the old.
Wow. So I know I'm supposed to stop right now, but I just got 2 more questions. Marita, you wrote this amazing book, The Strong Black Woman, and it kept you really busy. I know that because there was so much interest in that conversation and that topic. I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts on whether your books can be as useful to women of other cultures, races, ethnicities, or is this myth of the strong Black woman, is that something just unique to Black women?
Well, I've been invited to speak before groups of white women. And so the strong Black woman complex is just a variation of the ways in which women in all cultures are burdened with excessive responsibilities around family and work, the ways in which women in all cultures have their desire for joy, autonomy, independence censored. It's just that it plays out in a unique way. But the fact that one of the things that books do and stories do is they break down barriers. And so that when I read a story about someone coming of age in China or Egypt, the reason I keep reading is because I'm connected on the level of humanity. And there are basic human issues that are embedded in the story. And so the strong Black woman, yes, is embedded in our enslavement. But many people in many cultures around the world have experienced enslavement, have experiences of genocide, have experience of huge traumas that have shaped their cultural relation and psychological relationships in the family and with each other. So I've been heartened that it's a book that has been received by women across the board.
Wonderful, and it has. Ananta, my last question to you. I found your explanation of the law of karma really enlightening because I had in my head what karma meant, and you explained it so beautifully. So could you briefly explain for the audience tonight, people like me, what should women understand about karma and its impact on our journeys to find ourselves?
Sure, it's a big question. I'll try to answer it briefly. The law of karma, I believe, is a very empowering force. In a nutshell, it is giving us an explanation for all that's already happened due to the law of karma, and that we can't control. So with regards to the past, it is fixed. We cannot go back. We cannot change it. All we want to do in revisiting the past is to learn from it. And when we can truly learn from it, then in the present and in the future, we are really the master of our own destiny. And we unlock that through every thought, through every word we speak, and through every action that we take. We are able to really transform the script of our trauma, of our past, of even who we were yesterday, by simply having that knowledge that every moment is a fresh new beginning and an opportunity to really exercise that creative ability to give birth to the kind of life and reality we wish to live in. So that's how I look at the law of karma. And even when, I look at my life and there have been difficult situations and experiences of even abuse because of other people's actions, when I look at it with the lens of the law of karma, I no longer feel like a victim of those experiences. I feel that I understand them. I understand that they were a certain experience of karma playing themselves out. But when I see it that way, then I automatically put myself in the driver's seat to learn from that, to never repeat those things that were done to me to anyone else or even to myself, right? We think, oh yeah, I won't do it to other people, but are we doing it to ourselves, right? Like, did someone do something to us that we then internalized? Because that's what I had done for so many years with eating disorders, was internalize that punishment of my own self through not eating. And I had to recognize that, oh, like this was karmically a part of what I came here to work out. And oh, I did it to myself. Okay, so I gotta not only forgive the other, but I have to forgive the part of myself that hurt my own self and that betrayed my own self. And when I do that, I take that responsibility. And when I take responsibility for my karma, then I am fully in the position of being the creator of what will become my future and my destiny. And so in that sense, I really find it to be the most empowering thing and the most grounding thing. Honestly, it's funny, I had someone who I never met before just connect with me, and she was a very spiritual, intuitive person, and she said, there's some law that you're constantly thinking about all the time. And she didn't say what that law was. I was like, oh, I know what law that is. It's the law of karma, because I base all my decisions on it. Like, what's the karmic consequence of going this way or that way, right? So it's not about what society says, about what the conditioning is. It's like, if I do this, then what's going to come back to me, right? And ultimately, it's about the intention underneath the actions. It's not about the actions themselves. So it's something to think about as often as you can, I feel, because it's a protection, right? It's really like that invisible force that when we respect it, when we act in accordance with what is going to ultimately free ourselves from incurring any kind of karma, when we do really pure action, we're not acting for, oh, may I get good karma back? We're just saying, may I be like nature? May I do this simply because this is my nature, right? So if I'm a writer, may I write not to get recognition or awards or bestseller status, but may I write because that is what flows through me, because
Mhm.
words are what are the gift that I receive from the divine, and that are not mine to keep, but that are mine to simply flow through, right? And even teaching and all of that inventory that I teach people to do in the 9th step of my book is not for our own benefit, but when we are just surrendered to being an instrument of the divine, then we are freeing ourselves from the bondage of having to incur any more karma in our life. And when we get to that point, and when we're really surrendered to being an instrument and just simply doing what we ought to do for no other reason than it's the right thing to do, it has a way of giving us that experience of liberation while living. And that is really the whole point of the whole quest, right? Is to find that freedom, to find that liberation. And within that, we find that joy actually is what we are. It's our true
Mhm.
It was hiding behind everything. And so once we start to take that responsibility and take that ownership and free ourselves of mental prison after mental prison after mental prison, can we really just flow with that joy? And when we just do what we're supposed to do because it's what we ought to do, then whether someone praises us or blames us, whether we get a calamity or a wonderful situation in our life, we're going to feel at peace and find that joy within no matter what. So I feel like that really is my relationship with the law of karma.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I have genuinely enjoyed this this conversation, and I could be here all night because you guys are just a treasure trove of information and wisdom. I love it. Absolutely. Now, I wanted to ask, what age group would you say your books are or for? Either one of you or both of you.
I would think both of my books are for young women, say of from 16 up. And I also like to say that my books are for men, because I think that once they come to understand the needs of women, they can be better friends.
Right.
And partners.
Absolutely. Ananta?
Yeah, I would say, I've been surprised by women of all different ages really resonating with my book, and also a lot of men finding that it feels inclusive of them. I purposely wrote it, even in the beginning, in the introduction itself, to say that the divine feminine is within all of us, no matter what kind of body or gender we have, because the divine within us is what allows us to give birth to our true self. And we don't have to have biological organs that allow for that kind of birth. And so in that sense, I feel that men, resonate with the messages and with the insight that it allows them to also feel their emotions. Because I think in the patriarchal world that we live in, it's very damaging to men's psyches in addition to women. We're all trapped, just in different ways. And the more I think men also get this message, the more they're able to come out of their own conditioning and connect with their own inner divine feminine. And when they do that, then they are less needy of the feminine in a negative way or in an unhealthy way, and able to appreciate that more because they connect with it within themselves. So I feel it's for anyone who is ready to go on a deep journey to unlock their greatest power from within. That would really be the ideal reader or to benefit from the book.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you. I will be sharing it with lots of people because they are both wonderful books, and I personally learned a great deal from them. We are about at the end of our hour. I don't see any questions. If you all have any questions, you've got 1 minute to ask them. But we've got some great comments. Please see my question above. There's a question. Oh, I am writing a memoir about self-transformation. Any tips? Plus tips for publishing. Really quickly, if you have any tips. They probably have a lot.
Be brave. And don't worry about publication right now. Just give yourself over to the writing. The publication will take care of itself. But I think that writing a memoir can be deeply transformative, can be deeply healing. And also find a community, a writing community that you can be part of.
Yeah, and I'll just actually say that, Rachel, if you want, you can reach out to me, because we're refashioning our spiritual warrior program to actually help people write their own healing transformation stories in community, because that feels really important. After I wrote this book, I felt like what I'm being called to do is support other people through their own process, and we can help you also to publish it. So feel free to reach out to me. If you're on Instagram, you can reach out to me at ananta.1. I'll just type it in here. That would be a good place to reach out. Or you can also send an email. Okay, you can look me up on Facebook. I am there. And I'll also put the email in to the chat that you can reach out to me on.
And I'll be offering a 6-month memoir intensive starting in the middle of October. And information on that is on my website, maritagolden.com.
Amazing.
Wonderful, wonderful, ladies. Thank you so very much. I feel very honored to have been able to talk to you tonight. Learned a lot. I think I'm going to read your books over because there's so much to them, really. Thank you. And I think I'm supposed to say good night.
Awesome.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful to be in connection with you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.